What it do, what it is, what it all. Shout out to those of you in the live chat. Much love to Lissy Darko. She is right. Support your local peace dealer. Thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for joining once again. And yeah, got together with my brother Phil, Um,
How do you do? Peace crew, billion dollar vibe tribe. How do you do?
what it is. Some people say brother from another mother. We brothers from another star system. What's up? We might even be from the same star system, actually. But
Well, we certainly got some things going on in our synastry. I mean, some connections that are from similar positions and similar spaces.
yeah,
But we're all the spaces, are we not? This is the thing. This is what's interesting. We are every single space. It's just we're more familiar with some spaces than we are others.
I love that. That's very well said. It's definitely something to explore. I could see that being a Piscean philosophy as well, just being aware in feeling and in thought and in spirit. But yeah, regardless, definitely glad to wake up with you this Sunday morning. I'm gonna keep this smoke over my face so it makes me look mysterious and cryptic. Just lying to sense.
Saging the face. Yeah, hopefully it's not the first time that we wake up together on a Sunday morning either, Michael.
And this time I'm not super sick coming from the strip club, so I can actually like input some stuff this time. Good looks. But yeah,
it's always good to connect anyway. So like what were you up to last night? Have you been keeping healthier trends, or it's not to say that the strip club isn't a healthy place to be. You could have been drinking the finest of healthy drinks there as well.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm trying to get this resorted. Like, I actually want to reload this page because it's not exactly what I'm familiar with. So I want to get it resorted. So I'm trying to navigate that if I'm feeling a little bit disjointed.
That's totally fine. No, last night was pretty chill. I did a couple rituals. You know, to me, I can do something super mundane and call it a ritual. So I didn't do anything too fancy. But yeah, I realigned my focus. That means I drank a couple beers and I just and talk. But yeah,
a ritual that can really put you into the central space, isn't it?
What central space?
The central space, your heart space, the zone, your creative space, like where you're most happy to be.
Yeah, I would say that. I'm downloading new firmware there. Yeah, I'm ready to roll. Shout out to those of you who are aware of High Vibe. We kicking that into gear. Shout out to the Leo King and the High Vibe family. About to hit y'all over y'all heads with some new ish. So definitely excited about that too. Making the shift to actually committing to daily content. So y'all gonna be seeing a daily horoscope from me finally. Yeah, it'll be High Vibe exclusive, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna be making the shift from weekly to dailies. Hit y'all with a consistent daily asshole tarot too. So so you're gonna see a lot more collabs with me and Phil. That's for sure. And yeah, I'm really excited of what's to come. This Jupiter and Sagittarius transit has been very amazing, very promising, very exciting, and we haven't even gotten to the best part yet, so I can't complain.
Yeah. What do you consider the best part, actually, out of your interest? I'm still trying to reload this page, but like talking about that Jupiter in Sagittarius transit in itself, what are you perceiving as going to be the best bit? Like, and how have you experienced it so far, personally?
Cool beans. Take your time with that too, man. Sage for everybody. Singing bowl. The best part I would say is you know, from Leo season back to Sag, when everyone realizes that they've truly glowed up. Like Sagittarius makes sure everybody wins, which is very controversial because you have other influences that want to control and police and delegate. Well, this person deserves this person deserves that. Sagittarius don't care. Everybody, just I don't really, whatever. Everyone gets it. So everyone's gonna glow up for better or worse. And it's definitely going to give everyone the perspective of the new frontier we're in for the last 4 years of this cycle, because we started this cycle 2011 while it was conjunct Uranus, and now it's in Sag, so we get that like light square to Neptune, and I mean the best that's to come is just finally seeing the full merit of the past 9 years and just realizing, damn, I'm amazing. Every single person making that realization. So, I mean, the best yet to come, I would say for now, as a Gemini, it's definitely allowed me to fully express and bring forth my talents. And I'm grateful for that too. I'm ready to go back to the basics and work even harder with my lazy ass. So, yeah.
I only perceived the other day recently how you, as a Gemini archetype, people who have got placements in Gemini, the 3rd house, or Virgo, as well as placements in the 6th house. These guys are, and these people ourselves, wherever those placements may be that we have in those positions, are the placements that are going to be the most rapidly changing because they're ruled by Mercury, which is the fastest whippersnapper of them all. I only just thought about it the other day. So you're like this. Sometimes it can feel that you're probably not changing at all because you're dealing with the retrograde, or you're concentrating on one area of life or one specific recreation of your experience. And so, but like this in May, Mercury's going through Aries, through Taurus, and through Gemini, and so it's obviously clearing a lot of different degrees of the zodiac. So we can see from so many different angles ourselves through communication and through the division of dividing up our time and how we spend our time.
So true.
So you're like the antennae as a Gemini. You're like the architect for that, for running ahead and for staying back and after class and learning and studying. Obviously, you're the messenger.
So that the messages stay on point. Amen. Amen to that, bro. And
you really helped me see astrology through different perspectives, Mike. It was like of the way that you tell stories with the narrative of the transits. And I think it's so valuable, and it's really expanded my ability to tap into the archetypes of how to express my storytelling. So thank you very much for that.
No, I'm very grateful. You mentioned that too. First of all, I didn't know Black Love. Oh, never mind. I was thinking Questlove. Shout out to Black Love. Shout out to all y'all on the live chat. But yeah, I'm very grateful. You know, for especially being able to hear into the analogous or the analogous state of the stories or the analogies put in. You know, it's easy to take some of what I say too literally, and then you know you're too fixated on the details when it's really more about reading between the lines with how you know we bring this as above energy so below. One thing that you discussed with me that I really admire about you is, you know, bringing the conversation to older individuals or just people in certain groups, and they can get too fixated on the scientific quality of a craft like this that they miss out on the more magical aspects and treat it like it's bunk, all muggle-like or all uninitiated like. So please know when we use terms like this, we're not trying to make ourselves feel more exclusive than other people. We just keep it real. So
yeah, it's very important, like to say I've actually managed to get the second screen open now, so I'm re-entering, I believe, which is going to be beneficial, I do think. So squeeze me, then I'll make my point.
Cool. We're gonna have Phil come right back, but until then, watch me brush my hair, comb my hair. Dun 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 dun. Oh, he back. You can still watch me comb my hair though.
I love your comb. It's very cool. So this hasn't done what I wanted, but regardless of that, I'm still going to continue. So cool. It is about this not cutting ourselves too loose from like the science doctrine of astrology, which is really bizarre because like those are the guys that have been waving the flag of it for the, like, where it's been in the occult, where it's been hidden from popular culture. People had to really invest behind the scenes by choice to go and study astrology. So they had to invest their own money to go and get like graduate courses and spend years becoming qualified. And so obviously there's a reason, because everybody wanted to prove astrology, and for that to be for it to be validated in science, it would have to be grounded in a whole different perspective. Even so much, one which is not realistic. It's not grounded in the actual authority of the root of where it comes from. And so that is spirit. And so the funny thing is, we are here to find that we've got to realize that so many of the words that we're using are dogmatic.
Oh, yes. So true. So true.
Even like terms like within sun sign astrology are dogmatic.
Yeah.
Like we can obviously pigeonhole people with being a certain sign or certain thing or certain way of being, and like the devil, for instance. Let's just start there. With like it's the Capricorn archetype in the tarot deck, isn't it? Like it's the 10th house as well. So everybody has got Capricorn, and everybody's got a 10th house. So everybody's got this devil archetype within them, and yet. When I first got a tarot deck, like I was like, I don't really want to look at it because it gave me the heebie-jeebies, because I was brought up in a Christian schooling, you know.
Yeah.
And so like a C of E school is what they call it, Church of England school, because really the government, which is married to the law and the throne, which runs like Britannia, if you will, which is like in correspondence with all of the governments across the world. Have said that they are going to teach religion as part of what is the government, and that is obviously quite horrifying, really, isn't it? To think that we've got that being taught. It's not biased. It's a bit unbiased, isn't it? It's a bit biased.
I mean, it's definitely valuable to teach, but mandatory, especially if there should be a separation of church and state. But you know, people should have the decision to choose if they want to learn that instead of being taught. But and I love that we've titled this "Reprogramming the Traditional," because you really hit on such an important point. Like people who pull tarot cards are effectively, they're going to be accurate, right? And people who use these archetypes, they're going to be accurate, but we have such a huge task on our hands. I'm more and more realizing with this Saturn return I'm going through that the responsibility we have on our hands is the hugest. Those of you with like Saturn Sagittarius, Saturn Scorpio, Saturn Capricorn, Saturn Aquarius, you guys are no offense, Saturn Pisces, like you guys are inheriting responsibility that is like bigger than Atlas holding the world, because Saturn return puts you in the awareness of, you know, the people older than you aren't going to be alive much longer, and the concerns for the world, allocating resources, rules, you know, decisions of what happens, that falls on your shoulders. I don't know if you really know that. As a young Gemini, I'm all like, damn, I only have 1 year. I'm like 29. I only have 1 year to be like a childish 20-year-old, because I step in my 30s, like so much responsibility, whether I want to or not. And to go back to what you're saying, you know, you hit on such an important topic. We have this burden of having to literally redefine certain archetypes. And especially taking in the tarot cards, you know, they're going to be accurate, but you're effectively reading another timeline. You're reading an old timeline. That's one thing that when I started this spiritual path, I really didn't resonate with. And I didn't realize until around now, where it's like the path I'm walking is right, but the tools I'm using are outdated. And, you know, Christianity. Well, the last thing I was going to say is like religion. This is basically what you were saying before. Religion, Christianity has kind of taken the terms we use and in such a dogmatic way are kind of almost limiting our outlook.
Which is a damn shame. because it's just, I mean, this is the funny thing with language. Astrology is the root of language. I didn't realize when I was studying, like, to be a great astrologer, that I was practicing all of the different techniques, learning about all of the different things, the aspects, the houses, the planets, all of these different things. I didn't realize that it wasn't just about reading charts. It is about all language, signs and sigils and shapes. It's about all geometry. It's about everything that you can do with a stationary kit, really. It's astrology is what you can observe, is what you create with a pen. It's about all things. It's a very metaphysical language. And truly, the original Bible, which we've never probably been able to lap our eyes on, is the richest of substance in astrology books. It's the original astrology book for, like, well, it's not the original astrology book, but it's one of the greatest retellings of astrology stories in parable, because really it's about the sun going through the same cycle every year. And it's all about cycles anyway, geometry, because it's just about a circle and the 360 degrees of that circle. And we learn greatest through Saturn, as you said, about your Saturn return. We actually, I feel like it's a bit like we get knighted by Saturn when we are in our Saturn return. Knighted is a very funny term, just to ponder on, but pass that by. But it's a bit like you're now coming of age, and we actually don't have those rituals within our society. Like, we don't, if we were growing up in our tribes, which we're just refinding and realigning with, if you will, people who are a resonance of our soul family and similar nature. Obviously, if we were growing up in groups, which would be much more nature, much more to our nature, I believe, much less pressure on the parents and on the children and of the siblings if we had larger groups. But this is maybe something which will naturally be cultivating as we move forward. Certainly not a subject to get lost in now.
It's still very, very important to consider
When we're talking about Saturn and geometry. It teaches over the course of 360 degrees, because it's the furthest archetype from us. And so it's the farthest we can see with our naked eye. Just like the farthest thing we have relationship to is our father. I mean, not always do we have a father, but we could call it our father who art in heaven. Regardless,
our heavenly father.
Yeah, it's our heavenly father. It's the devil, man. Really, let's start playing with this language, because it's not there to be scared of, although it truly is what it teaches us most greatly. The ancient language, which is most biblical, although enwrapped in dogma. And I lose subscribers quite regularly when I tap into this language. When I start talking about, like, the devil, you can lose people's subscribers. It's not about gaining subscribers, it's about talking the truth. As I say, when I first was taking some mushrooms myself and sitting there with some tarot cards, when I was learning the tarot deck, trying to really engage with it, I was tripping out, scared of the archetypes. Not scared. Well, scared. Yeah, it's false evidence. I hadn't paid enough attention to what was going on. Fear is literally just darkness where we haven't paid attention to a certain thing. That's how we get a shadow. So the shadow of this, the tarot deck, was really intimidating. And for a lot of people it is, especially Christians, because of that devil card, because of that death card, because of the hanged man. I mean, I had a friend who hung himself, but I see the hanged man and I'm like, that's bloody brilliant, that card. I love it, because it represents Neptune. It represents how when you surrender to the circumstances that you are stuck within, you can gain great illumination. You may not even feel stuck if you surrender. You may feel completely in control of your situation, and you may be illuminated to everything that's going on. And so there's so much more depth to, obviously, tarot And two, all of these archetypes, when we allow ourselves to let go of the dogmatic views, the devil being such a powerful one.
So well said. I mean, I think we have to stop seeing Capricorn as the devil. I think we need to stop demonizing things in general, because it's, even at a subconscious level, just kind of bringing up illusions. And thankfully, because the craft is true, it can supersede that. But yeah, you know, as we really find ways to evolve through this, and that's not to say that the traditional archetypes were built solely on lies. They definitely serve their purpose, hence what led them to last this long. But it's back to what you said, man. Astrology is a language. Science is the language of mathematics, is the language of science. Astrology is the language of destiny, of the gods, of the stars. And you know, it's not a religion. It's not necessarily solely a tool, as much as it is a divine language that comes with its own conjugation and ways you can shorthand the words. And like you also said, you know, what we're going through with this path is all based in spirit, the real foundation. I saw a video, unpolitically correct. Young Pharaoh had Dolo the Pilot Man featured, and one of the first things that Dolo said about understanding the spirit realm is that you are spirit, you know, and it's like understanding yourself. And once you really understand, which is what these crafts help you do, they help you really understand the spiritual essence of you. Shout out to those two brothers. So, you know, reprogramming these traditional concepts really also gives you a greater insight into you. And one thing that I've noticed is it's harder for some people to accept parts of themselves because they've been taught to demonize it. They've been taught to kind of look at it as a bad thing. And that's one of the most annoying questions I get. Is this good? Is this bad? When you decide what's good or bad, not a circumstance, not anybody else, even though they'll try. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, we are the only person who judges. We got the judgment card. It's good to stick with the tarot because obviously we're both familiar with it so well, and like the audiences, we're all familiar with the tarot deck. And so the judgment card in itself, not that I have it to hand, is got the scales on it, and the scales represented by Libra. And in this situation, we're judging the projection, which is our projection, and we're projecting out how I'm not projecting out. Oh, how does Mike feel about me? How does Mike think about me? It's my projection. It's not about how Mike feels, about what I'm going to experience so much. Although we're co-creating here, you build a resonance through, obviously, we've spoken a few times. We've got like a bit of a more of a rapport. So you don't really have to assume and project. But this happens with our own shadows all the time, again and again and again. And we often project our insecurities onto one another. Because, and that's the beautiful thing about the spirit. If we look at ourselves as the sun, always in astrology, we're so often using the sun archetype. I mean, we celebrate the year, we celebrate our solar returns, and so if the sun is Leo and we're shooting out this way, we're observing through the eyes of Leo. Behind us is the eyes of Aquarius. Our shadows is the Aquarius. So Aquarius is the cast. It's all the rest of the people, and Leo's just ourselves. It's just what we see, and so. Really, each other, our cast, our friends and family, our crew, they hold us together. They're the foundation. They're the cast. We chose it. We chose our cast. We chose each other because we're all love. And so this really, when we actually are broken, is our shadows, if you will. Not that I think that we're broken at all. What we're doing is just tuning our forks, and our forks are our hearts. Because it's our magnets. This is why the devil's got horns, because he's a tuning fork.
Yeah. And I guess that's not to deny the shadow aspects that people have too, which is a great purpose of bringing them up. But I think we're even redefining that. And on the topic of reprogramming the traditional, at some point, you know, we're going to have to make that hard pill to swallow and accept that a fundamental way our predecessors looked at the world, especially religiously, completely wrong, or just false, even if it's not 100% wrong. And it's so hard for certain people to let go of certain archetypes. Like
this is the real depth of it. I'm a bit flabbergasted by how brilliant religion is, actually.
Oh yeah, religion. People say that they're not. I hate to interrupt you, but people say like they're not religious, but they're spiritual. But religion is simply just a way of life. You know, like everyone.
There's a very deep bit of astrology to this, and so to what we are experiencing now, to this conversation. We're the pioneers, Mike, and I'm so excited that I cut you off.
Oh no! Please do more of that. Do more of that.
But like that's what we like. I've got that Mercury Uranus, so I just want to leap in there, and so I appreciate with that.
In Capricorn,
I learned from Dolo, because Dolo's a great teacher as well. He said, "Don't apologize for yourself," and I learned that, and I was like, "Don't apologize. Don't be apologetic, because that's going back on yourself. Didn't do anything wrong. I just trampled all over your toes."
Can I interrupt you real quick? You said.
Sure.
On topic to add on about the cast, I've always felt that, like, you know, we have a cast, we're part of a cast, and we might argue on stage, but when the show's over, we're chilling in the cast party. Like, oh, can you believe we beefed for like 10 years? We sold acts like really well. So
you can think about the cast as like sitting back watching the movie at the Oscars together with a bit of popcorn, throwing it around. And as you say, though, we were able to congregate and celebrate about what we did here in the physical, because we're stars and we're all just connecting, reconnecting. And it's the more eyes, that's funny enough, the more eyes on the subject matter, the more eyes, which is eyes are our spirits, right? So the more that more humans manifested here in the third dimension, that's the more eyes are creating things that matter from no space, from non-physicality, because really we are in this illusion of non-physical. And I want to get into that really deep, but I really want to talk about some history first, which is like very Saturn, because it gives it a construct. And the funny thing is, we have to work within constructs, and Saturn, the rascal, he'll teach us that. And it's like, I don't like to work within the constructs. I want to draw all over the lines and be all Uranian. But Saturn teaches us that we can actually gain the most from pouring water into a cup, because then we've got something to hold that water in. And so really, if we're looking to hold and maintain consciousness and being able to show it, present it, we need to put it into the foundation that has already been built. Although it may be outdated and crumbling and disastrous before our very own eyes, like a lot of the belief systems, as we say, a lot of the health systems, a lot of our own thoughts, a lot of the way we treat ourselves and the way that we do things as society may be outdated, but we're reprogramming them now through the knowledge of Saturn. Anyway, so it was 750 years ago, which is 3 Pluto cycles ago, and David Palmer, the Leo King, he mentions about this transit. Of where they had Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto all in Capricorn. And we're going to have that at the end of this year and for the next year after that, all through 2020. That's 750 years ago. And so back then, way back then, through time, which Saturn is the ruler of time, which is 3 Pluto cycles, that astrology was looked at very differently. In fact, the whole of our construct of our reality was perceived completely differently. We didn't even have space. We didn't have the planets. We had the spheres, and these spheres had influences, and they were just like we have with astrology, exactly the same significance. So the Capricorn Saturn influence was a layer, just like how Saturn is a layer, and it's just how further they were up, exactly the same order. And it was Copernicus's rule of the observation of the spheres, where he came in, denounced that we were actually following the sun. And Dolo, the pilot man, he teaches about following lost stars, right? And so this natural reality causes us to be taught by this metaphysics. When we follow lost stars, when we follow other people, because each one of us are stars, if I was so caught up in what other people were doing all the time, which we often can be sometimes, then we lose traction to what we're doing ourselves, which is the most important thing, to concentrate on our hearts and the current, because that's the slipstream that allows us to come out of time. We'll get back to that because we're time travelers. We're time lords. And Saturn teaches us this. It's only the knowledge that's got swept away through tradition by design that's allowed us to forgotten this. And so it's we've had the reappearance of this flat earth theory, right? A flat earth is very similar to what could be perceived, but it's also it's a misconstrued, just like the earth. We don't live on a physical anything, as far as I can see. The actual zodiac itself is this body. In the East, they teach us about the Pisces rules the feet, Aries rules the head, and you can actually do what is it? Obviously, you've got acupuncture. You can do what's it when they do
reflexology?
That's it. You knew it. You knew what I was saying, and that's where you get right into the soul of things, isn't it? Because it's Pisces. It's the feet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so really it's pretty deep, but like we don't celebrate that information because we don't celebrate holistic knowledge. We've only celebrated what's physical. We only celebrate what's right here. We don't, because that's the science. It's what you can see. And so science has made atoms these spinning things, right? These spinning things, and they're like spinning, and you can't quite put your finger on them. But if you do, at one time it will be there, and someone else might try and put a finger on it, and it will be there, or it will be split off, like the what's it called, the split hole, what the bleep, split pole experiment, right? And the particle experiment,
the slit experiment.
That's right? It. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Awesome.
And so really, what we learned is that these things are a wave, and they're a pulse. These particles. If you haven't. Maybe a lot of the audience will be familiar. I can't study the chat. This is hard enough to bring about as it is. And so Santos Bonacci, who is one of the greatest teachers of all, of the Zodiac, is where I'm recycling and sharing a lot of this knowledge from. Also, what makes this so greatly interesting, so amazing. Do you remember Jordan Maxwell, who went to Russia? And there was a big hullabaloo. Alex Jones was going on about Jordan Maxwell. He's gone away to Russia, and he's been saying all these truths, and we need to, he was banned from America or something because he was talking about all these truths. But really, what he was talking about was astrology. Are you familiar with this Jordan Maxwell?
I've heard of him, Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah, I knew the name, but I didn't know until recently, within the past few months, that he was talking about astrology. He's teaching the Zodiac. He's teaching the Christ. And the Christ is the teachings of the Zodiac, because the Christ is the sun.
Exactly.
It's Helios.
Yeah, Helios.
And so the Christ is the sun. We talk about our sun signs, and obviously, as I said, we celebrate our birthday. And the story of the Christ is because it's the heart, right? We all know that Leo loves to create. Leo is about doing what you love. It's about shining out and radiating what you love. And it's about doing it regardless if anyone loves what you do anyway. And because, like, think about it, and people will flock under the sun regardless because it's so radiant. At the beach here in the UK and anywhere, people go and get burnt under it needlessly, don't they? We flock under the sun to the beach. And so there's so much money to be made out of such radiance and so much yellow creativity. And we've all got it. The sun represents the Christ. The sun represents our heart. The sun represents our fifth house.
Would you say it's the source of our life force energy and prana?
I'd say that we are pure consciousness. We are that creativity. We are that space in the heart. Yeah, we're so we're going to go quite deep into it in a minute. But I need to get back to that history lesson.
Please do.
We do. So back in 750 years ago, sweating here. Exciting. I was channeling it quite streamed a week ago because the sun was conjunct Uranus and Taurus, and we're 10 days later now. So it's just trying to reiterate and refresh myself because I know the knowledge very well. It's just about getting into that channeled zone. as you know, Mike, and it's about surrendering to that to come through. And so, anyway, 250 years ago was 3 Pluto cycles, and that's when they put into place the globe, basically, theory. And Copernicus came around, and they did away with this knowledge. Knowledge is something you know. You can rest your laurels on it, because you can rest your hat on it. You've got a ledge to stand on. Anyway, so 250 years later, when Pluto returned to Capricorn, Saturn wasn't there. I don't know if Jupiter was there, but Saturn wasn't there. They all weren't there. It wasn't the same stellium. And so it was actually then when you would have had the likes of that's what was that when America was founded? Was it 250 years after that? Is that correct? The Revolution?
Yes, sir.
And so obviously I'm not a great historian of things.
1776, basically, around that area.
So that's when your country was established, 250 years after we'd moved away from the knowledge of knowing that we were grounded here on the physical earth. I mean, we could talk about that for a long, long time. The importance of that knowledge, which we did bypass, which is the perfect time to mention it. I'm very pleased we remembered it now, is because when you are fixed here, grounded on earth, the earth, that is Saturn, you know that you are the center of creativity. By God, by George, by Joseph and Mary. You are the center of creativity because the heart is the center. The sun is actually just local to Earth, is what we know from Vedic astrology. It is the same distance as the moon, and they are going through cycles. The moon follows the sun. The planets do follow the sun. The other wandering stars, they do follow the sun in a vortex-like fashion. The sun is center stage, is the star of this show, just like each one of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you yourself know, Leo, Mike. So you know very much a lot about all this.
But what did you mean by it's the same distance as the moon? I think I misheard that part.
I believe that there is actually the moon probably goes up and down in height a little bit on a pivotal thing throughout the cycles. And the moon and the sun go around on a figure of 8, a bit like an infinity sign.
And the moon, of course, goes around the Earth, which goes around the sun.
Nothing goes around the Earth because the Earth is fixed and stationary. The center of creativity, flat. This is the astrology.
You're saying the Earth doesn't travel around or orbit around the sun?
I'm saying the Earth doesn't go anywhere.
Oh shit! Okay, so you're taking the flat Earth model that makes Earth centric instead of the star systems where the planets revolve around the sun or orbit.
I'm reiterating. I'm the messenger, a bit like you. I'm in the Myers-Briggs. I'm the campaigner, so I get information. I know it's valuable, and I share it. And
no, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right, though. So
no, I'm just clarifying so that it's not my idea. I'm not taking the credit.
Oh no, I feel you.
I'll take the credit for explaining it. But
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right, though. So is what you're saying is that the Earth does not orbit around
space, as we were taught it at school, as far as I teach it as well.
Groundbreaking.
The only space is the inner space.
So this would mean so when you're talking about the sun and moon, you're saying past the firmament, this is where we see the sun and moon moving.
I believe that Saturn is a bit like a womb, really. And it's a womb for our consciousness. It's just like a circle. And so we inhabit this womb, which is an experience where we are within this egg, if you will. And it's not more like a physical. We have got this Earth, which is a physical experience, a bit like, when you manifest within an online game, you're in a map. But each one of us had to get bodies to do that. And our bodies are the zodiac. Instead of putting a VR suit on, with our spirits manifested into a body. Obviously, we had to choose our parents, and they chose us. And it was a whole big hullabaloo behind the scenes at the movies, at the Oscars, when we were deciding which roles we were going to take and how we were going to get lost within them, because everything's done perfectly by the golden ratio. This is why we get lost into it. Fibonacci. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We really must focus because this goes off in so many different directions. And so, your country was established, America was established, and that was a real big thing for the expansion of the archetypes that rule the world now, right? Because the British Legion was the real front of it all before. The monarch, Victoria, she went over yonks ago, and she took over with her ships, with the Union Jack. And the Union Jack is just astrology itself, by the way. It's just the division, the flag of the Union Jack, which is actually incorporated into many, many, many flags, is actually just about the sun and the earth. It's the Jack, which is the spark of the sun. Because on May the 1st, on Wednesday, we have the sun actually going over the equator, and there's a rhyme and a riddle to go with it that goes, I can't remember, specifically, it's like, Jack jump over the candlestick, or something like that. You may be more familiar with me. I don't even know that rhyme. It wasn't taught to me when I was young, but apparently there is a great rhyme.
That took me way back, though. That was nostalgic right there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that candlestick. Are you?
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jumped over the candlestick, something like that.
That's the rhyme of the sun going over the equator on the Beltane, which is the 10th degree of Taurus. And it shall do so again, the 10th degree of Scorpio, when it's on its way, when we're going through the different seasons. And the way to image this, I've got a pen and paper, okay? It's real complicated, right? It's not that complicated when it actually becomes much more simple. This is the most simple way of it is. Once we get a bit more earthed, when we ground ourselves into the current, into the charge of our hearts, and we can see clearly, quite transparently, through this imagery, through that this is actually the plane of inertia, is our hearts, and it's the plane of earth, because we are here within the heart of things, in the center of creativity. And if we were spinning if Earth was spinning, like following a star, round and round, which we all bought into, as I bought into it for sure. It's only a few years ago that I managed to transition out of that, and
I personally still buy into that. The whole.
That's okay. That's okay. Like, I'm used to it. But,
and you're talking about the concept of like the Earth rotating as it revolves around the sun. That's what you.
No rotating, fixed, stationary.
But you're saying that what you bought into was the whole idea of a rotating, spinning Earth.
Yes, like what we all do. You know, I thought we was living on the ball, spinning around the sun, that we taught at school.
But so you believe that the Earth is fixed.
I was learning astrology as
because that would give credence to Taurus ruling the Earth ruling a fixed sign, which
it is fixed, and it's the only bit that's changeable is the seasons, Virgo, Mother Nature, and so really, and it's the most changeable, as I said, right? But it's indivisible. You can't divide Mercury. All you can do is cut it up and put it into piles, which are bound by Saturn, because Saturn is the ruler which will decide whether you're going to have a good harvest or not at the end of the day. Anyway,
that's controversial. I'm so glad that we could.
This is controversial, but I can only but prove it.
No, yeah, I'm really glad we get to discuss this because
I've wanted to for ages.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've definitely. It's amazing to see, you know, like you said before, the whole flat Earth. I don't even want to say flat Earth, but there was a time before when people did believe it was flat, and then someone kind of got people to believe it's round. I said someone, right? But regardless, you know, we learned this in history class. But like, I really do believe that, you know, the rotation of, I mean, in order for that not to be true, we were deliberately lied to then. And that's what makes this controversial, because now we have to ask why are scientists deliberately wanting us to think that the Earth rotates and revolves around the sun in orbit. And the only thing that and that's one thing I do find interesting about Santos's view of the flat Earth is he's able to incorporate astrology into the mix, because the whole basis of transits are based around the planet's orbit around the sun.
Earth. I'll prove it to you now. This is the thing, because astrology was originally, obviously, it's the truth, right? We all know astrology is true.
Yeah, no, definitely.
There's no shadow of a doubt. Even the shadows are included. Even the shadows.
Yeah.
So really, it's what we're like. Why do people want to exclude astrology? because it proves the Earth's flat.
Damn.
And so, yeah, damn, it is damn. It's fucking wow. And the real thing, look at that word damn. Let's just do some metaphysics with the word damn. First of all, beavers build a dam because we get caught up in that. We get caught up in our own damnation because we do.
Word.
This is not because we're bad. We're spirits. We're love. We're nothing but love, and that's the root of it. The root of it. The only thing that gets caught us up in is the bullshit beliefs, and they're our own. And so what we're doing is here we're untangling here, and this is coupled by these transits that we're experiencing in the sky. Now, this is why I'm mentioning it to bring us all up to date. I'm going to tie it all in a bow if people are patient enough. Not saying you're not patient enough, but I know a lot of people, they tune out because this is like, you know, controversial. And so I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm open. Like, I have my beliefs, but I'm open to hearing other viewpoints. I love being proved wrong because that means I learned something new. You know what I mean? So, definitely open to this.
I actually started to write a book. I was like much more into, my journey was much more into spirituality than into astrology. And it was actually the flat earth that pulled me so deeply into astrology because I had to get to the bottom of it. And I was like researching, and I had to know about it. And it was also familiar to me that I realized that I was like an astrologer in a past life or something. And it was just like an old pair of shoes.
That's amazing.
So basically, I just acclimatized real quick to knowing this knowledge and seeing it. But if it wasn't for great people like yourself giving us the opportunity, and if it wasn't great people like Santos sharing his wealth of knowledge, then I wouldn't have the opportunity to share it myself. So I'm very grateful for everybody, including Lada as well. She gave me a great opportunity to
We've all played our part. We've all played our part, which is amazing.
Everybody's great. We all help each other, give each other legs up.
Even the people in this cast who are doing what they can to antagonize us, they play a part too. It's all everything.
You know, I don't want to speak for other astrologers, but there are other astrologers teaching the same methods that we were both familiar with. We're all familiar with. A lot of astrologers teach it, but we don't have to go into it because it cuts people. Sometimes it's just more simple to not cut the cloth, in a sense. I would never teach a lie. I'll never, if it comes up for conversation, I will stand within my truth like Saturn, because Saturn is the greatest teacher. And what does it do? What does the authority figure do? The farthest from you. What does Christ do, in a sense? Like, what did God do? Doesn't get involved. It just stands there. Huh?
Lays down the law, sets the rule.
Lays down, slack 'em, deck 'em. Yeah. Like you're like a parent, like it stands there within its truth, and like we're told to stand within our truth. And Saturn is the set. Saturn is Earth, and so you know it's Saturn's set because when the sun is setting in Libra, the exalted planet of Libra is Saturn. And it's the whole set. And so when we're looking at things like this being a stage, the whole set is like in Egypt. They would know that when the sun is setting, that it's about the vision that we're projecting out here onto our experience. And it's the vision that we give authority to that will manifest in the physical. Because our consciousness is the author of the story. This is your story. And if you're conscious of your projections, then we'll be catching ourselves in these experiences again and again. And so really, we can go deep into that in a moment, but I really wanted to bring us through that history lesson, which I've snarled up a few times.
Please do.
And so that was the Elizabethan times when America was made, and here in the UK we had Queen Elizabeth I. There's a really good comedy show called Blackadder. Blackadder was about this different gentleman who would manifest in different eras, and he was played by Rowan Atkinson, who is the same person who is Mr. Bean. Very funny man. Anyway, in the Elizabethan era, which was, I haven't got the year, but it was 500 years ago or thereabouts, that was when astrology was celebrated, and Queen Elizabeth had an astrologer as her right-hand man. He was known as John Dee. This character that was his name, John Dee, but he also had nicknames. He went by 007. He went by Merlin, and they were the names of.
Wow.
Yeah, this was one of the greatest astrologers of all time, one of my favorites. But he lived 250 years after where I started the conversation. So he lived 250 years after the 1300s. which is when the last stellium that we're about to have was in Capricorn, which was
damn. Wow.
Yeah, and basically back in that time, they knew about esoteric astrology. Back in the 1200s, there was these astrologers called Alice Bailey and Francis Bacon. Shout out to Quirky Cosmo, because she's one of the people who gets shot down in a sense for talking about esoteric astrology, which is not maybe based in the logistics of the precise degrees of knowing how to do angles and placements and read a chart, but the depth of the knowledge of that metaphysics and in that wisdom is very powerful indeed. So big love for being brave and to stand within truth. But esoteric astrology is also like kind of like poo-pooed in a sense within the modern day scientific astrology community a little bit, because it's so woo-woo. Like they're like, hey, it's like there's only 7 houses and things like that. I don't fully understand it myself completely and utterly. But the thing is, it's all about Saturn being the ruler of all things, because Saturn is the furthest planet you can see with your naked eye. You actually have 360 months in one Saturn cycle.
That's wild.
360 lunar cycles, because the moon is the nearest luminary that you see with your naked eye. Or at least the one that's most rapidly moving around the sun. I need to make sure I catch myself in my own teachings here. So yes, the moon's going like this. Like I see the sun. Oh yeah, I was going to draw it, wasn't I?
Yes, yes.
So I'm going to draw a big N for where the North Pole is, and I'm going to write an E for England, where I am, and America. I'll write an A. Okay, that makes a lot of mess, and I'm drawing a line which is the equator.
The celestial equator, and for those who aren't familiar, astrology is based off of the ecliptic that the sun travels and the celestial equator. And so the zodiac is an imaginary space. It is not the best way to put it is the constellations, the astrological constellations is astronomy. The imaginary fixed zodiac is astrology.
This is key. What you taught there is key, because this is everything in the Bible is all taught about the following of the story of the sun over its journey across Earth. And I see it. I really like to see, I think this is a key word as explaining it, is that the sun is incubating us. A bit like a baby's born early and it has a little light in its cot to keep it alive and to give it extra nourishment and light. So UV light or something like that, I don't know. But it's a bit like an incubation light. And so what you'd have with a cannabis plant, you put a lovely light in it and it'll grow it big and strong and fruity and buddy. And that's what the sun is for us. And so it goes through cycles. And I haven't got, so here we go. I'm not like, I haven't got all of the greatest equipment here, but we'll just make do. This is the North Pole, if you will.
Yeah.
And so this is where the Aurora Borealis is. And here's England. It's fucking small compared to that. So I don't know why I made it so big, but there you go. It's just a demonstration. And here's America, the Atlantic here. And so you guys, you're much nearer the equator. Here's Florida, right? Okay. And this is West Coast. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good. And so when we are in winter, the sun is patrolling out here where Australia is, where the Antarctica is. And so the diameter of the sun, it will go round and round. And so the diameter actually becomes shorter in the summer months.
So you're saying that the sun goes around the Earth?
Not around. This is flat. There actually is a physical model of this by a gentleman.
Like, so the sun goes around the Earth.
Above it. Like this.
So there's no bottom part, like it's flat. Like
there's nothing underneath. We're not on a flying saucer.
So you're basically saying that we're not in space.
Yes, completely.
And that there's
the illusion. The funny thing is, as Joey Tribbiani, as our buddy Matt LeBlanc would teach us, you get lost in space. Yeah, you do get caught in the illusion of being lost in space, which is very real. People have things that happen here.
So people never travel to the moon, and there's never been like stuff sent out to Mars.
I don't really think that you can land on those things. No, I actually teach in all of my astrology, even to people who were completely unaware, like where I'm coming from. I will say that all of the other planets are electromagnetic frequencies. There are chakra points, and they are multi-dimensional frequencies from other realms, because this is the third dimension. This one, you know,
I agree.
Earth.
I agree that Earth is a dimension. I agree that planets are vibrational entities. I just also believe that you can travel to them through space. Like we have gas flash. So this is a fascinating conversation because like I really want my beliefs to be challenged.
Yeah,
Like
I'll try. What I'd like to do is unify them into something we can find common ground on, or like work with for sure.
the common ground I think we have now is the knowledge that we are in the Earth dimension. Like this.
Yeah, the key bit about it is Saturn will teach us about that dimension.
Yeah, I do believe this is a realm, but I truly do believe that
It's Saturn's realm.
We're floating in space. We're following a central binary star system, and that's what I believe Aquarius represents: the totality of the cosmos and space. Ooh, look at my underarms. The totality of space that allows us to travel through each medium. So I'm really wanting to wrap my head around how this could be fixed. And like
we're fixing it. We're fixing it now with this conversation and what we're going to be doing over the next year or so. And
does that mean that we can travel out of this dimension?
And I'm going to teach you how. I've not done it yet, but that's because we're all doing it together. We all have to believe in ourselves more. I mean, I'm reprogramming and I'm having this conversation. There's nobody who wants to have a conversation with me about it. Can't pay them sometimes, Mike. They're just, I don't actually have any friends left now because of I've isolated myself so much, pretty much. The only people I connect with are people in the coffee shop or people online. And it's not
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. People may say,
I know there's nothing wrong with it, but it's really great to engage with people, right? Isn't it? But the funny thing is, the less characters you have in your life, the less agents, if you take it from a matrix perspective, are letting up space. And so you have got more consciousness available to your frontier, to your vision, to access from your heart. Anyway, we go to that in a minute. It's so deep. But like, we really want to focus on because I want people to come along for the ride. You don't want to lose people. And so it was back when Elizabeth was on the throne, and you could see it in this brilliant comedy, Blackadder, because I don't know if you're familiar with another actor. Stephen Fry played this John D, 007, James Bond. And the real cool thing about 007 is, I didn't know this, is that, I don't know if you know, it's funny. He was called, another name for James is like Dick or something like that, or John is another name for, Dick is another name for John. And obviously we know what Dick is penis, right?
I thought Dick was another name for Richard.
It is. I think it's got a few. I think we have to watch Austin Powers to be able to list all of them.
Dick, Richard, John, that's amazing. I didn't know they were
Johnson. Yeah. And so 007, look at those characters. It's the Dick and Two Balls. And so that's 007, because he was a secret agent who would be an astrologer, who would go around and do all of the astrology for the different kings and queens across the different regions at that time, back in the 1600s or whatever it was, the 1500s. And so astrology was celebrated to those who were oligarchs, who were those who were higher class, those who had the knowledge to know that it was still of quality.
Yeah.
But 150 years later, another Pluto cycle, each Pluto cycle being about darkness, about our shadow, about what's hidden from our consciousness. Astrology would slip into even more of the dark ages, if you will. And it was even less celebrated, and all the pagans and all the witches were burnt. But the funny thing is, I've missed a major part of the story, and that is the most important part. Back in the 1300s, that's just the century after Notre Dame, where so much of this astrology was depicted in the beauty of the windows, and obviously Nostradamus would predict that this date would come. But regardless of that, it was in the 1300s when they decided that obviously Jesus wasn't around.
Yeah,
he wasn't around, and we needed someone to take care of this, like, people and this consciousness.
And the great syncretization.
Yeah, this is like they made the agreements. You might know more about. You might be able to share greater on it, Mike. These agreements were made between the king or the queen, the King of England, and I believe it was, and the Pope. And they said that the Pope would be the representation of Christ until Christ doth return.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about Jesus coming on no clouds, babes. No.
The early formation.
I'm talking about you. You are the Christ, and I see you right there before me, Michael. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. I see you too. I see you too, God. What's up? It's
a pleasure. Thank you. It's nice to be greeted by such a dynamic, beautiful man.
Oh, much appreciated. You looking beautiful yourself.
Well, thank Christ you. In the flesh. I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks.
No, definitely. No, this is very fascinating.
We submerge ourselves in this because we're baptizing ourselves emotionally into this experience. We're submerged by the waters emotionally right now of our consciousness within this conversation, right? We're immersed. And so just like when the waters go over our foreheads, our third eye, we're actually becoming very conscious of this conversation as we tune into the narrative of what astrology truly means. And it's about learning our space and location.
Well, I mean, let's just reiterate, because this is why I think this is one of the amazing things about reprogramming, but why it's so amazing. If we do accept that this is flat, this will probably make the rising sign more meaningful than the sun sign. Like it really changes the way you look at astrology.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always would say that you check out your rising sign, but like I would also like I feel that if you was to use whole house signs and you only had a sun sign, you can predict just as accurately as you would without an ascendant, without a birth time. You can really say, well, this is what's going on in your life, and that's how it's affecting you. But that ascendant is the earth. It's our current. And so what do they teach us about magnetism? If you're gonna have a current, if you're gonna conduct electricity, what kind of reality are we conducting here? One based on love? Are you conducting your production? Are you the author of your story? Are you conducting the electricity from your heart? Because really, if you want to conduct anything, you've got to be grounded here physically on Earth. Earth in the current. That's what they teach us at school, right? You've got to be grounded in the Earth. That's the current of magnetism. And so astrology is the science of magnetism. It teaches us about magnetism. And because toroidal fields are magnets, and the North Pole is a magnet. Your heart is a magnet. You don't get distracted by all of the other stars, when you don't get distracted by what all the other people are doing, when you do what you love and come from your heart, when you know that you are the star and you keep in that space of bouncing in that dance and showing up for yourself every day and seeing yourself through the eyes of each other, seeing yourself in all of your experiences as you're wiping your ass, seeing yourself as the Christ, as you're getting your hands dirty, doing the washing up, seeing yourself as the Christ, as you do things that maybe you do not want to do, see yourself as love and know that actually that is what you were doing. What you're doing is we're programming love. We're programming that weave, and that's the ultimate dance. That's the atom dance. That's Adam's dance. And the beauty of this is that we eat from the apple every day, because the apple is this distraction, the golden ratio of physical experience. And we manifest into this physical experience because that's what love does. Love goes in every single time. Love goes in because that's how love knows itself. It has to go in because that's the only way it gets to expand. And so each of these planets may follow the sun, but we are here in the university of Earth, the university of love, the university of the heart space, as the leading fringe of this consciousness. We are the change of the archetypes. They can't change without us, because we are the pioneers. And that's what we learn with Uranus, right? It's without us, we can't leap forward into the future. And that's what we learn with Aquarius. We're the peeps. And so it was 250 years after that they burned all the witches at the stake. And I think that there was essentially the stellium in Taurus at that point, where Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, they did all meet, but it was in the Earth sign of Taurus. And I believe that was 250 years ago.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time that they've met in Capricorn, which is the cardinal energy, and it's Saturn's home sign. And so Saturn, every time it goes home, Saturn was home 30 years ago, and that was the 80s. That was when I was born. I was about 3 or 4 when Saturn was last time, and so it was real. Like we were preparing for those 90s. It was the early 90s, and we were putting in lots of things that could hold together us spending our money and getting into physical, spending our money and wanking away, working hard on the system, and just wasting our energy onto distractions of the physical world. That's what the last Saturn construct was about, and it was brilliant. It was exciting. We could go to the movies, we could go and we could get on.
Nice.
Because we come here, we are the flesh, we are the physical. We come here to get lost in this illusion, and it's the perfect illusion to get lost in. Because you can't find yourself unless you get lost, and you only find yourself in lostness. And so we're only lost in this gravy of love. And so really what we're looking at is this reprogram of the archetypes. I mean, so every time that Saturn returns personally as an individual being, when you are turning 28 to 30, this is when you get to change the constructs which have supported you for the whole first 30 years of your life. I actually also teach, quite groundedly, that the first 28 years of experience that Saturn teaches us is a reflection of the first 9 months of that we had inside our mother's womb.
That's wild. That's deep. That's very deep.
I would say that's pretty gosh darn on the point as well with regards to how Fibonacci works through time. I saw the great, obviously, David Leo King. He was talking about
rule of 3,
like different lines of time.
Imagine.
Is that what you were saying? Because I'm not sure what it's known as or anything. And it's like seeing time through Fibonacci, seeing time through the progression, seeing time through a progressed narrative. Like if we was to do a how do I relate to today? Energy, they pulled my natal chart or your natal chart up and compared it to today's transits. You could do a Davison chart and it would put my birth between wherever we are now, and it'd be sometime in 2003. And so that is an archetype which really gives the energy for what is being experienced for me right now. Anybody can do it. And so that is a slipstream through Fibonacci, through timelessness. Because if we're changing the archetype of Saturn completely and utterly, like we're changing our relationship to time.
Yeah.
Because we have built our time on a calendar, which is also the zodiac. And so we are built our physical world that we know on an out-of-date calendar with holidays. This is why it's so important that we include this part of the information, because those holidays took us out of the 360 degrees of the zodiac. It took us out of the sidereal, the authentic zodiac, which the Vedics know. And so we had a fall from consciousness. 750 years ago, we had a fall from consciousness. There was a great flood from our consciousness in the Bible, Michael. And that flood took us from knowing ourselves at the center of creativity, the center of being as Christ's multidimensional beings of love, took us from knowing that to being less knowledgeable of ourselves through 750 years, again and again. It was James III who rewrote the Bible, the king who rewrote it, and I believe it was James III, not James, or Richard III, that's his name. Tricky Dicky. I need to get these things right if I'm teaching things. And it was Richard III who rewrote this Bible, and they agreed that when the Christ returns, they will change the traditions. But that's not like necessarily an agreement. It's actually just a thing that we're doing, because the righteousness of the astrology transits is returning it back into our own hands, because we've got the internet, we've got our connectivity, we've got this experience which is self-teaching. Saturn teaches this. Our experience is Saturn. And the funny thing is, we didn't get to mention this a moment, Saturn isn't outside of us. Are you saying the devil's outside of you? I know that's not true. Sure. I know that's not true.
I don't believe it's inside of me, though. I don't believe it's in or out.
I am it. I'm a Capricorn, and you've got a Capricorn moon.
Yeah.
And you don't even need any placements in Capricorn for us to be that archetype.
Or devilish. I feel like it needs a new archetype, though,
We could change the names of it to make people less squeamish, and so that we could
Yeah.
really move forward with it a lot quicker. That's a possibility. I'm not ruling that out as something that could be really beneficial.
Please, for those of you who haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. So I have 3 questions for you, bro. Just to kind of reiterate certain type of things to ponder. So because I'm pretty sure there's an explanation. So the first is the whole concept of eclipses. Whenever we deal with lunar eclipses, we are dealing with the Earth traveling between the sun and the moon, and the sun casts a shadow of Earth on the moon. That being said, you know, the shadow that's cast on the moon is not necessarily flat, as would be if we were on a fixed plane. It's round. So could you explain that part for me?
Yeah, this is the one of the first thing that you look to, isn't it? Really, and I studied the eclipses very, very integrally for a few years, and how do you wrap your mind around it? First of all, I was actually, even the first things I tested was actually looking at the sun in clouds, and being on a hill. First and foremost, what you do is trust your natural senses, and so you've got to look at landscape and remember how we were taught to draw, perspective drawing, first and foremost, as how we are envisioning these things. And so when we're looking at a sunset, you've got to think the sun is leaving the vicinity. I'm not going nowhere. The Earth's not moving, but the sun's clearing off. Thank you. You'll be back. You bugger. You rascal. I'll see you. You'll be back tomorrow. But it goes, and it seems like it disappears over the horizon, right? Over the horizon. But I teach that it disappears out of our vision. I can't do that noise very loud. But it does so into nothingness, into no thingness. But really what it is that we can only see so far. We can only see so far. And that's the breadth of our wings, I'm afraid. That's the breadth of our vision. It's the breadth of our angel wings, is the diameter of the width of how which we can see. And that's only that's only illuminated by our own starlight, our vision. What we see with our eyes, our spirits, is as far as the eye can see. That's as far as which we can see the sun. So when the sun's buggering off, once it's like done now, where I am, I bet it's still daylight where you are, is it?
And that actually leads me, if you can answer both at one, that leads me to my third question. This kind of lends credence to the world being more round and traveling through space, because it's night where you are and it's day where I am. If it was really flat, it should be day all over, correct? Or how do you understand that as well?
I would say like it's a I wouldn't want to call you wrong, but it's a misconsumption.
Misconception.
Yeah, basically, I'd say that star, the sun, is quite like it's really bright, but it's not so bright that it illuminates the whole Earth at once. It's central. It's centralized. It's a bit like a candle. I mean, if you've got a big enough room, the candle doesn't light the whole room. If you've got a hallway, if you've got a hall, you know what I'm saying? If you're doing yoga in a hall and you've got one candle in the corner of it, it's not going to light the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so
it's going to travel.
Yes. And so basically that's what I'm saying. And with the eclipses, that's with Rahu and Ketu. And it's basically, I've researched it. And it's about optical illusions. This Rahu and Ketu is a bit like a fragmented disc. There's actually say it's a different of several different discs. I fully can't conceive of it entirely, but I have spent a lot of time with it, and there's a lot of people who do spend a lot of time with it. I haven't got much more to go with the eclipses, but it's not like I wouldn't say it's a problem, but that's like the trickery of the moon. Like, haven't you heard like David Icke saying that the moon was just a false mind trick?
So then we wouldn't need time zones based on that, because the speed at which the travel sun would cover ground for going across that plane. And my last question really would be, if you were to go up on a huge tree, right? How do you explain not seeing everything, on a flat realm, which it's not just purely flat, right? There's going to be higher points than others. Wouldn't necessarily you be able to see everything on the horizon as opposed to it dipping? How do you explain that?
Everything rises to eye level, doesn't it?
Okay.
Everything always rises to eye level with regards to that scenario. No matter how high or low you are, everything will, the horizon always rises to exactly eye level. I've only flown to America. I flew to Spain, but I did. This was like the confirmation. I was just like this. I was just like this the whole time, looking out the window, because I spent a while just like presuming and presumpturing and looking at the science, studying the things. But it's the grounding here on Earth. This is that you can get caught in these distractions of the flat Earth. It's the biblical science of
the firmament. And my friend feels that like there's something they're hiding at Antarctica, bridging into that. The ice caps might be the boundary around this.
But I haven't actually fully explained. Like this other bloke. Is anybody who's in the chat? I'm sure there are. I've interviewed the very brilliant Seven Bowmore, who does Inner Standing, and he had this guy on about the flat Earth, and he also he built a model of actual cosmology that I'm trying to explain. I could probably find it, so I will give it a go, shall I? Because I'd like to share the visual with you, and I think it's beneficial.
Yeah,
but the thing is, I've also got so much more I want to talk about, so I don't want to get caught too much in it because I actually moved on. Excuse me.
We're gonna have to schedule a part two because it's definitely.
Yeah. I got the opportunity to. Have you got a time schedule then that you need to get off?
Yeah, probably like in another 15 minutes, 15, 20. I know you wanted to read my chart, I think, too.
Or yeah. Maybe we could do that another time. Like, I don't know. I think it's the importance of me sharing. Like,
I definitely want to see that visual. Yeah.
What I'm doing is I'm not looking at you now. I'm just trying to get this up so I can show you.
Take your time.
Okay.
And I do agree the importance of bringing the history in because when it comes to this, a lot of it is misconstrued, and I know they make it really hard to understand more.
And it can really put the pressure on, like when we're trying to prove something, which even if I know it from Blue and Brew, and you're very accepting and permission giving, if you will. But I know like the pressure's on because I'm like, I want to explain it. I would love to
friendly debate. Yeah.
But yeah, it's brilliant. It's my favorite subject for sure. It's funny because the guy is, for everybody's information, I advise that everybody check out Seven Bowmore, but also the Martin Kenny. I found the video now, and so I'm just going to see if I can get it all set up. But really, this isn't about the Earth being flat. That's a real big distraction. This is the whole point. That's the big point.
That's very true.
That's such a major falling off, a hurdle. It's such a hurdle. We really need to break through it because it's not important. What's important is not the Earth, and it doesn't matter. As The Rock said, it doesn't matter, and he wasn't lying. He's a great teacher, and all of his. I did a video about his chart yesterday on my channel. Subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not familiar. And I talked about how he is a Taurus, and this is what this is all about. This is about Taurus and toroidal fields, because that is the true nature of atoms, and this is atomic. This is about the atomic nature and structure of love, which is who you are. It's who we are. And so if you are that, that's what the Earth's built out of. And so it's very important that we perceive this correctly. I'm going to share my screen if I can get this loaded. It's almost there. He goes on longer than me. No, but so I tried to see if I could just. This presentation's 40 minutes in itself, but I just want to see if I can get one image of it together with his model.
Although it definitely does, it definitely is the difference between perceiving how well you can trust what you're told versus now, like, really having.
It comes down to true science. Like, it's geometry. It's geometry, because you got to remember that Saturn is about numbers. Geometry is about numbers. Astrology is about numbers, and so Saturn is ruled by 6
and angles.
And so 6, this number 6, and I'll give you the reason for that in a moment. And just to whet your taste buds. So this is the reason. And so I first got into this information a long time ago, and I was like, "This is This is all about space." And they were like, "Saturn sending out the signal, because you're Saturn, you're sending out the signal." And so we're relying on our belief systems and the constructs and the blueprint within the tablets of our belief system, the traditions of our belief system, because we're in the box. This is the 3rd dimension, and we're in a box. That a dimension is a plane. And the only plane is one with 3 beams. You can't actually have if you're in the 2 dimension, then it'd be flat. Literally, we wouldn't be able to have physicality. But we give ourselves density because we've got 3 beams. We're within a cube space, right? You don't need a 4th dimension to be. If the 4th dimension wouldn't be here, and so the only place for the 3rd dimension is Earth.
Could you argue that perhaps maybe the 5th and the 6th dimension is here? We just can't perceive it, perhaps, because we're we're perceiving 3-dimensionality.
I say it's your consciousness, and it's our consciousness, and it's that which we channel. Those dimensions are our chakra points. We are channeling that all the time. That's our higher selves, and we are the only multi-dimensional light beings. We're not heavy man, we're light man, because we're human, and hue is light.
Yeah.
It is if you want to see how bright a bulb is, you see what hue it is. And so light is about not physical. You're not physical, it's an illusion, because you're 99.9% nothingness. No thing is consciousness. But only for that illusion to take place, we had to take on these vessels, these physical flesh suits, these Christ avatars. And these are built out of atoms, right? We're built out of atoms, which are moving. They're like moving so fast, or pulsating so fast.
So it's not really physical; they're just particles that are clustered.
They're not. Particles is what is a dirty word from what I've heard. So I'm not trying to poo-poo you, Mike. I'm really not. But I've been told to say that it's a wave. It's a wave.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Because you're a miracle, and that's what we do. We wait.
I love your moon is in the 3rd house, right? Or no, your son's in. I think your son's in the 3rd house.
My son's in. Oh, it depends how you do it. It depends how you do it. In whole house signs, I have the sun in Capricorn in the 4th. But I've got moon in Libra. I've got my Mercury and Uranus in Sagittarius with Saturn. So this is the tough thing. I want to be out there, Mercury and Uranus, but I've got Saturn there too. So I've got to do it within the paradigm. I mean, I can't tell Porky Pies about it because it's no fun for me to get crucified.
I feel you. It's not worth it either. Yeah.
No, I mean, I wouldn't put myself out on a limb. I'd be too embarrassed. True. I wouldn't go out and talk about something I didn't know for sure, because I'd be too embarrassed that I was going to get mugged off and look silly. Yeah. And I may look silly to lots of people, but really when you sit with it and do a lot of research, this comes down to the greatest teachings which were always known. And so there's this thing about electric magnetism. I just want to check. We went through the history, didn't we? Of how astrology was. Everybody kind of knew astrology and its value 750 years ago, which is the last time that we had the transit, which we're stepping into in December, when Jupiter goes into Capricorn. And so when that happens, we're looking at the replay. We are replaying. We're like, but not like step for step. We are reinitiating ourselves as Christ consciousness, and astrology is the knowledge of self. It's the astrologos, because you are the logos. You're Adam and Eve, motherfucker. Pardon me, I'm getting excited.
In the beginning was the word logos. The word logos was with God, and the word logos was God.
Yes. Now you're speaking my language, not that you weren't ever. Because what is astrology? It's the language of love.
Yes, true that.
Because it's the language of consciousness.
Very true.
And it's the metaphysics, because you can't explain metaphysics without story, without parable. And you can't explain it because we're in this illusion. And what is your body made up out of? It's made up out of these different things. 1 + 1 equals 2. 2 + 1 equals 3. 3 + 2 equals 5. 5 + 3 equals 8. Ooh, it's a Fibonacci ratio. And this is how our bodies are built. And it's actually how Venus, our goddess of value. What gives things value? What gives things tantalizing beauty? What gives things a quality of substance is Venus, because she takes 8 years to go round the zodiac, but each time she goes retrograde is at a quincunx to where she last did it. Quin means 5, which means love, baby. We know that. It's Leo. And so Venus is about going around and making a valuable thing from weaving between this quincunx on a Fibonacci ratio. It's actually on a Fibonacci ratio. And so what are we breathing, Mike? You're really good at doing those rituals and routines where we set things to manifest. What do we really focus on when you ground?
I would think what we're breathing in is oxygen, right? The air, the breath of life.
You nailed it. We breathe in the chi.
The chi. There we go. There we go.
So what we get caught up in the golden ratio, which is the Fibonacci, when we get caught up in the beauty of other stars, when we get caught up in the beauty of other dazzling, beautiful beings, and when we get caught up in our own lack of value, we get distracted in the golden ratio of this experience because we get caught up in it. We get caught up in our own illusion because this is a beautiful illusion. It's perfect. It's done by
one, right?
It's done by Fibonacci, which is the fib of no chi.
Wow. See, you're so good with that. You reconstructed the language. I love Philip doing his dance. I love it.
I'm just recycling. You got to check out the Flat Earth Paradise channel. He's really good. He does reviews on movies, really great reviews on movies. Alice in Wonderland. Check them all out.
The of no chi. I will never hear that word the same. Thank you. You just.
But you've got to remember that fib of no chi is the golden ratio, and it's all things Venus. Your relationships. If you get caught up in the fact that you are dating someone who is reflecting back your biggest horror stories because you allowed them into your personal experience, and then you're having hell because you're reflecting each other's shadows and projecting each other's shadows onto each other, and blaming and shaming and feeling awful because you were caught in the nightmares of relationship. Because when you come into a relationship, we get caught up into these kinds of scenarios because we get caught up in the illusion. And so this is the matrix, right? What do they call this thing?
Would you say astrology is just a construct too?
I think it's a beautiful something. What do you mean by construct?
Someone said astrology is just a construct too, which was very vague to say, but I think they mean like it's just a tool. It's just.
I see. Yeah, it's a great tool. I'd say that when you buy a car, you get you get all the things that tells you about the radio. It tells you where all hidden compartments are. It tells you about all the gadgets.
Yeah.
We get that annual when we were born, and astrology is the annual.
Amongst other things, I agree.
Yeah. And so, but the numbers is the greatest teacher of all.
Yes, facts. The angle is like you said before, which is so amazing about astrology. Everything about astrology is based off the calculations of angles. It's just advanced geometry.
You're completely 100% right. And so, hexagon is that 6-sided shape? I'm trying to check. Hexagon is 6, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Well, hexagon is like the Saturn matrix. I was told about this Saturn matrix, and this is the matrix which is ruled by Saturn. Like you are Neo. You are the one in the matrix.
120-degree internal angles.
Say that again.
A hexagon has 120-degree internal angles.
That's very interesting because 120 is a trine, right?
Trine, yeah, that is. It's really.
So it's harmony.
Yeah.
And so also the 6 is the cube, right? It's the dice.
Yes.
But this is the cross that we bear, because we are our physical suit, as I said, is the zodiac. And so Christ, which is a consciousness manifests inside the physical, and we walk around this holodeck, which is the perfect way to perceive it, if you ask me. Rather than thinking about the cosmology on the Earth, I like to perceive it most as a holodeck, and use the astrology as a tool because it works perfectly. And but like the holodeck is really because we could get caught up in the decorations here, because it's all beautiful. It's all done by Fibonacci to take our breath away. It's done by love. I mean, we value its beautiful Venetian dance because it's woven the qualities into the patchwork of every scene. And so all that is seen before your very own eyes is love, because it's just a reflection of who you are. You cast it out from your very own being. And so what we got to remember is that there's 2 different ways of a magnet. There's 2 different poles. There is the South Pole as well. There is a North Pole and there is a South Pole. And that South Pole is the shadow. That South Pole is getting caught up into these distractions. It's getting caught in blame. It's getting caught in the distractions. That is the South Pole, because it's not the heart. The North Pole is your heart. It is the creativity. It is the Christ consciousness. It's the seat of the soul. It's the throne of the North. And if you want to sit in it, you've got to create from it. You've got to create from love. And you've got to be conscious when you're creating of love. You can't just barge in here.
But the heart, that's fascinating. Not the crown chakra North Pole, but the heart. That's it. That's amazing.
Well, there's brain material here. And this is why Saturn teaches, because Saturn is Chronos.
Yeah.
Crown. And this is what brings it back to the history. It's brilliant. I love the story, because we're the kings and queens. We are the true kings and queens. And when we get this knowledge, it's not that they've got anything above us, which their money means diddly squat, if you will. So there's no one to blame out here. There's no one to blame. When we've just had the knowledge not available to us. And now we are self-initiating ourselves and each other into this knowledge, re-reminding ourselves as we re-remember the nature of our being. And so that is the falling of the crown as we know it, but it is the illumination of our own crown. It's because we know that we are the stars, we are Saturn, we are here manifested within an experience which is very real, where there are true fleshly consequences and shadows to be dealt with, and we will get lost in it again and again and again and again. No matter how much we do our shadow work, there's always more darkness, because there's always Scorpio. There's always an 8th house. There's always Pluto, and there's always an occult. And maybe astrology always will be occult, but we can certainly make it more popular. We can certainly make it more known. We can make it more seen and allow our spirits to transcend, know ourselves, to be empowered through this experience. So I've got to do one more thing, because I feel we've got to get this to a close, haven't we? Because we could talk forever. And if we'd like to do it again...
We're definitely doing a part 2. We may even make this a series.
Well, I drew this thing, and it's very important. And what I'll do is I'm going to make some models myself. I was very inspired. And so the poles of magnets are going to be, as tradition, done by red and blue. Blue... This is real funny. Have you ever seen the movie They Live with Roddy Piper? Mm. And he wears the sunglasses, and he puts the sunglasses on, and he sees everyone as reptilians, all the police as reptilians. Mm. And he sees all the Coca-Cola signs as like, you will die by drinking my sugar, or whatever. But you will also invest in the sugar. Lovely sugar. And that kind of thing. And you see red, and you do want to do it. You do want to go buy that Coca-Cola. You see its lovely logo, because it's very indoctrinating. Anyway, we associate our hearts with red, and we write with that, hey, I love you. I've got a good girlfriend. I'm going to write it in a red pen. It's Valentine's Day. But the thing is, the pole of love is electric magnetism, gravity, your hole, the black hole, because every star has also exploded into nothingness. As we're taught at school, a black hole is also a black hole, WHOLE. And so you're in wholeness, you are a star too. You're illuminating with your influence. You teach as a star, Michael. You teach with your with your videos, with your parodies, and with your great stories, and with your transit reports. You teach, and that's what you are using your influence to do. That's what a true star does. Just like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, just like Jesus Christ, just like anybody who uses their influence, their luminosity to share wisdom does. And so to do that, to be a luminous teacher of love, you need to come from the center of your being, which means come consciously from a heart base, which is the pole of blue. They in one of the rocks I did a video the other day. He used to go in the blue hell. What in the blue hell? He would say. I was like, what is that? That's the worst catchphrase ever, sunshine. But anyway, blue is also about those bluebells. I don't know if you have them in America. It's spring here in the UK, and there's bluebells because in the bell of our heart is the greatest chime of all. And so when we come from that, we are truly at peace. Anyway, that's a load of cobblers right now. Really, it doesn't matter. But the upper side of the magnet is red. And so these create two different torsion fields. This is magnetism. Very deep.
You were talking about toroidal fields before?
Yes, I'm coming back to it because it's the most important thing it is, because it's our auric field.
Okay.
And it's also the torus field.
I hate to interrupt, but you're saying the red is the polarity from the blue that comes with it.
Yeah, you're probably anchoring me rather than interrupting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. My bad. Oh, thank you.
No, you're great. So basically, when the red is the physical world. Okay, here's a great one. So here's the example. This is a real lived example, because best astrology is always experienced, right? Just like all things. And so I walk out and I'm trying to say, if I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to have a healthy plant-based diet, and then I walk out and a Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kremes is right there or something, and so there I get caught by the sign of outside distractions, the golden ratio of knowing that sugar and the satisfaction or the delights or like the interactions of the service inside Krispy Kremes and all of that stuff, caught up in a net, like fisherman's net, caught up in a distraction. I was caught. I was their dinner. I was paying for mine. I was caught up in the contraption of their own making. I was caught up in the allure of a donut, which is also a toroidal field, which is ridiculous. But anyway, so really, in maths, this is what I've got to go back to. We were talking about this being a matrix, right? This is the net shape of a cube. The net. And so we catch ourselves in our own net that we cast out. We cast ourselves out into this matrix, into this VR world, into this holodeck, and we cast ourselves out and we create everything. And so when we're casting ourselves out, we get caught in the distractions of our own making. The devil's in the details, baby. The devil is in the details. We'll get caught into our own attractions. Wherever our own Mars placements are, we'll be caught up into those attractions, obviously, because those are the kinds of things that we chose to manifest within this experience and work with. We're like, I really want to get caught up in relationships. I really want to get caught up in wasting my money doing this or that. And so I'm going to learn my self-value through those experiences, through this holodeck of experience. And so we catch ourselves in our own net. We catch ourselves in our own graces.
Yeah.
And in true loving relationships, you might still have arguments, but you were like, hey, I hear that you're really upset there. I can see that was really frustrating. I know that you haven't had a great day. I'm here for you if you need me, but I appreciate you owning that upset rather than projecting it on me. We become more conscious, and we come from the electric of the heart, and we don't snap into illusions, arguments, and distractions and fall from grace and, say things that really can't be repaired. And, and it happens again and again and again. And normally it's the people that love us most that we fall into those shadows with, or those things that we desire the most, that we fall into those shadows or into those red shifts are. And so this is a real thing about language. It's the device. It's divisive. In the Bible, they said that they gave them language and it was divisive.
Tower of Babel.
So, excuse me?
The Tower of Babel.
That's it. You're talking. This is why I was so excited to do it with you, Mike, because you know bits of things that I don't, and I know bits of things that you don't. And so together we can really make great collaborations, great powerful knowledge.
We got that sun-moon conjunction. Don't sleep on the sun-moon. I love it.
New beginnings, left, right, and center. We bring those new beginnings.
So could you recap a bit more how magnetism works? Because I'm definitely fascinated about that in electric fields and auric fields.
Well, when you don't get caught up in the distraction, you don't lose traction. Because this is about playing records. And if we're playing records, we don't want to go round and round and round, spinning around, doing the same old stuff all the time. We want to recreate. We want to remix, don't we? We want to make our own boogie. This is a recreational experience. And I believe that we've all been here before, and all of our experiences are very much like retrograde. We're replaying different scenarios, maybe not like exactly the same. I mean, I may have been a black girl before, and you may have been a white young lady. Who's to say?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
I really got a panache for dancing. I got it somewhere. I got it from somewhere. So, anyway, the thing is that we are here to co-create, and so our words of babble, as you said.
Yeah.
I nearly get caught up in the distractions myself there. I've got a sweat on my brow. But we could talk babble because the language ties us in knots, especially English. I mean, I don't even know the depth of how much of a brilliant language it is, but also how much it can keep us in certain chains also.
Divisive.
Definitely, for sure. And so, but if in some of the other European languages, although they use the same characters, the same icons to symbolize the letters and characters, think about that. These are different icons, different people. They're different tarot cards I've heard. Different letters are different tarot cards. They represent different deacons in the zodiac. So every different deacon is 10 degrees of the zodiac. There's 36 different deacons, and also, so basically, I know there's 26 letters, but there is a way that this overlays. There is a way that overlays, and I believe that we're only working with half of the alphabet. But anyway, these words, they create through what the Greeks would have known as phonetics, right? And it's really funny because I was always taught when I was a youngster, like I've actually got Chiron in Gemini, and I've got that real funny third house as it is. So me speaking weird, I would not be able to say my R's or my T's and my F's. I'd get it all muddled up. And so they wouldn't have the strength of a real R, like a pirate's R. But in Italy, they roll their R's, like Roberto kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And because they roll the R's, and it takes a real practice. When you roll your R, you're actually making an elocution, which is called trilling. And you go you can actually. It takes a lot of practice, and there are YouTube videos that you can practice hitting the top of your mouth, and it kind of bounces like Roberto. I mean, I'm not a professional, but that's what it does.
Yeah.
Okay. And R is red. Okay. Red shift, and that's important to remember. And so, when we're creating R, it's creating a torsion field. This is magnetics. And so with our language, the opposite is L. For love. And so there's right and left. And there's and you're going to do what's right or do what's wrong. And there's a lot of these things get you caught up in the language, but it's all about what we create with our words and the torsion fields and the magnetics that they create, because our words are energetic forms in themselves. And so if we're sending out, if you think of a torus field, it's a bit like a donut. I've only got this that can represent it. And we're throwing our words out there, which are not just energetic forms that we receive, but they hold mass. Their whole ideas hold mass. And so a mass being very much of a non-physical construct in itself, because it's a spiritual thing. It's a 4-dimensional thing. It's like, how about we do a video, Mike? Do you feel like doing a video? It's an idea. We're going to manifest it. Now it's a physical thing, if you will. But like, it's those things come together with words. And so each letters are like that. And so when we're coming with the language of love, and when you're creating with L, this is like metaphysics, which I'm still learning, really. I've got to just leave it there. but I'm still learning that. This is where I'm at on my trail. And there's great teachers that teach us all this. And I do see that the tarot deck and the Egyptians and the calendar of this language is all tied in together, and they create these toroidal rotational fields. But they're the same toroidal field of energetic that we're working with, the same magnet, because you are a reflection of the Earth in itself, the North Pole being the center. And so I originally got into this because of Agartha being about a hollow Earth. And so that was really what really got my curiosity going, way before Flat Earth I even knew existed. I mean, I thought Flat Earth was a laugh. And so it's not about these kind of things that we get lost in. It's about how we are learning about why Jesus was supposedly taken away on this cube, right?
Yeah.
But it actually was his body, the Zodiac, which was actually known in the Bible as the Mazzaroth. And so when we're creating electric currents to our heart, when we're really attractive, when people want to subscribe to our YouTube channels, or when people want to ask us for your date, or when people want to just go and buy you a drink, it's because you've loved yourself. You valued yourself enough to come from your heart. You've got a gravitational pull. You've actually set the, funny word, set. You've earthed the current because you've made it trendy.
Yeah.
Just like the atom spinning, you've made a pattern, a habitual routine, infinite, like the logo I'm creating now, just like my Unifying Perspective logo. Keep returning to the heart. Yeah, I'm going to go to a gig. Yeah, I'm going to go and buy a donut because I'm here. I want to invest in a donut. I want to have sex. I want to go to the dentist. Maybe not. But at the same time, you've got to do all these things in the physical world, but you've got to return to your heart. And the more that we return to our heart space, the more that we set that trend and tradition, the more that we are manifesting our delights and our joys, and we're having a gravitational pull to bring and attract. This is the true law of manifestation, to attract all things to us. This is the true law of the secret. This is the true
source.
Because we are coming from the source. You are the source. Yes, you're correct. You are sourcing your own dreams. You're co-creating your own dreams. And so we bring it to us like a gravitational force. Because we are black holes, and that's what they do. We're stars and black holes, because a star is a black hole. We're taught that.
Wow.
All teachings are done real tight because they stand right before you, like Saturn stands there. And they're taught like a tight piece of string, because anything that's loose, like a religion, you can hang yourself like a noose. I hate to be fucking funny.
You're poetic, man. I love it. That's the Libra moon right there. I love it. It's amazing.
It is true, but like the funny thing is, I got to go deep, and this is what I really forgot. I did videos this about to my channel. So really, in Halloween, we have jack-o'-lanterns, right? And so this is the real Jack in the Box. You are Jack in the Box. Don't you forget it. You're the only clown here. You're the Joker, baby. You're the magician. Jesus Christ Almighty. You are the joke. And the joke's on you. Because now you realize that you are a miracle through and through. And there's nothing but love. Because the jack-o'-lantern is that spark that we celebrate. It's the heart. It's the consciousness that you are. And so the flame inside, that ultimate infinite consciousness, the ultimate resource of love, which can't go depleting, is you. And so we celebrate that with our jack-o'-lanterns, we celebrate that with the Jack in the Box, and we celebrate that with our religions and the retelling of stories and allegories. But most clearly, we see it with astrology.
Amen. And
so what's great is, thank you, amen, brilliant this is that we have an eclipse straight away when Jupiter ingresses into Capricorn. And that eclipse is a South Node eclipse on Christmas Day. Christmas Day. This is the returning of Christ consciousness. This is the returning of astrology. This is the returning of knowledge of self. This is the returning of you, each one of us, as the ultimate warrior would say, you. This is the returning of the Christ consciousness and the knowledge of self. Because we are the astrologos. We're love.
We're coming back to really bring all this relevant knowledge. I think we can end on this note. There's definitely going to be a part 2. I'm glad we could use this one to set the context to really go deeper. And you've definitely helped me think so much more critically about everything that I've been taught, so I could definitely just not assume, but really look at it with a more, critical mind. So
Well, the funny thing is that it's the word assume as well. Is
yeah,
we when we excrete out of our arses, which is what we let go of at the bottom of the toroidal field, we assume so many things. And when we get caught up into all things of the distractions, like the pirates, I've got to finish with this. Of our dear friend, Rocktober, Robert.
yeah. Shout out to Robert.
Shout out to Robert. He's the man. And he made this great joke. And that is, yeah, I talked about the golden ratio and the beauty of things, whether it's a donut or whether it's a relationship. We get caught up in the distractions. And pirates, they get caught up in the decor all the time. I mean, they're always being told, come on, all hands on deck. And so, obviously, they love gold. Pirates, although they talk about their hearties, they're always talking about their hearties. But yeah, you got it, Mike. It didn't take you long. Mama didn't raise no fool. Arr! They're all about that red. They're all about getting caught up in the distraction of the gold and the physical rather than the spiritual, the conscious. And so the metaphysics of pirates teach us that X marks the spot, and X is where the hearties are truly.
Man, you nice with it, bro. You are nice with it. I love it. This is like Sunday morning church for me right now. So very grateful.
Thank you for holding space and giving me the opportunity to share, because I do love it, and it is exciting to be able to share with you and to be able to bounce the ideas back and forth. And we know that we're going to be rewriting these dynamics through ourselves, through our own patterns, through racism, through our beliefs. Because Saturn, this is the end of it. It must be the end of it, because Saturn is the ruler, and we're reprogramming all things Capricorn. He is the Lord, and you are the Lord. And so, when we reprogram the traditions, when we reprogram how we feel about our skins, when we reprogram how we feel about ourselves and how we see ourselves, when we reprogram ourselves, we're not a prisoner within any constructs anymore. We're free, we're liberated, we're conscious, and those cells are transparent, just like this communication, just like that North Node in Cancer. You see through it like water.
And you're right. Like, we are rewriting it. That's the one thing to keep in mind. It's not really about who's right or wrong as much as the conversation. Just like the ancient sophists who argued with not Socrates but Plato, and then you had Edison and Tesla. It's definitely about the conversation that's being had and the different points of views that get to argue. It's not about one side, it's all sides, and that conversation and rhetoric and literature. So it's gonna be so amazing to see how we revolutionize all that. But other than that, I see a lot of you in the live chat were just mind blown by Philip. I don't know why you haven't heard of him. If you haven't, please, I'm sure most of you have, but if you haven't, please subscribe to this man. I have his channel in my description box below. You will see him back on this channel a while, especially when I get Mystical Illuminations up and running. Hopefully, I'm talk to you later about this. Hopefully we can have you on the team, bro. That'll be lit. Definitely.
I'm always happy to collaborate. It'd be an absolute honor. Thank you very much.
So yeah, other than that, the only reason why I'm cutting this short is I'm going to be hosting a webinar today at 4 p.m. PST. If anyone wants to take part of the Taurus season 2019 webinar, hit up my Patreon page. The theme for this is hitting the jackpot with Uranus and Taurus. So if any of you want to join Patreon, fam, you totally can. Do you have any last words you want to say as far as anything you're offering on your channel or services? And yeah.
I have two last words. One is that do what you love, produce your content, and produce things that inspire you, and make it a routine. Show up for yourself every day, and that is the substance which is going to produce you the seed of your own inspiration through and through. So other than that, if you would like a personal consultation with me, you can get hold of me at unifyingperspectives.net. obviously subscribe to my channel. If you've got any queries, you can get hold of me via direct message on Instagram, Philip Daniel Miles, no spaces, at Philip Daniel Miles. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mike. You are a very gracious host, and it's an absolute pleasure to share with you.
And I mean, very honored to have you on board as always. And yeah, thank y'all in the chat for really being present, holding space for us. And until another installment and part 2, peace out, my friends.
Much love.